The Chiefs trade wide receiver Sky Moore in a 2027 7th-round pick to the 49ers for the 6th-round pick. What are your thoughts on that move right there? NFL referees will emphasize sportsmanship and crack down on violent and sexual suggestive gestures this season. How much do you expect this to impact the game? We got the CFL and a whole lot more to discuss on episode 98 of Total Football Talk. Welcome, one and all. It's that time again. We're back for Total Football Talk action. I am your host, Drew Willingham, and we are back for another fun-filled episode full of CFL and NFL action from start to finish. But it wouldn't be the same if I didn't introduce our special co-host just like this. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ryan McCarthy.
Woo! Oh, man.
This is how we should get intros into WrestlePalooza here soon, since they just announced that here recently. That, I believe, that is going to be the first PLE on the ESPN app for WWE, as they just announced this week, even though this is not football related, but they just announced this week that I believe it's the upcoming pay-per-view Clash in Paris is the final one that's going to be on Peacock. And then PLEs after that are going to be switching from Peacock over to the ESPN app, but you will still have to watch Peacock in order to see Saturday night's main event, because it's not going to be on NBC anymore. It's switching to Peacock. So you still have to pay. They found a way. Ryan McCarthy. I was wondering what they were going to do to make us pay for that app. They found a way to make us still pay for Peacock. Before we get started in football talk, how do you feel about that?
Delete! Did you ever watch Parks and Recreation?
Yes, Leslie Knope.
Do you remember the one daughter of the dentist? Money, please. That is TKO right now.
Well, when it comes to my money and giving it to them like that.
Hell to the no, no. Hell no, to the no.
Not playing that game. Not taking my money like that. It's either Peacock or ESPN. It's going to be tough because they're both going to be coming on at PLE rates. But with all that being said, we've now talked about a little bit of WWE action before we got started with this. We do have a comment here in the section from your No Credentials Required page, and that is from your friend Desiree saying, hey. Hi, y'all. Time for the sports ball. Yes!
Yes.
You know what?
Disney is definitely no Mona Lisa Saperstein. She will never, unless it's her husband, she'll never say, money, please.
Well, for free, I'll give you some glowing backgrounds right here.
Hey, all right. Look at that.
Ready to rock and roll. Since you came in here talking about sports ball, I will give you the awesome background for just a little bit. Now, when it comes to football, we got a lot to talk about. We got to start this thing on out with the opening drive. What we got in store, the CFL action.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Hey!
Here in the opening drive, we had some interesting contests last week, but I don't think that I'm just going to go ahead and get this out the way. I'll be honest. I don't think either one of them were Game of the Week candidates because they were and we're going to talk about that a little bit right now, especially a team that we've done pretty well to have their ups, but they have been having some downs this year, and that is with the Toronto Argonauts when they were on the road to take on the Edmonton Elks this past Friday night. This game right here was absolutely tough to watch, Ryan. Cody Fajardo, 25 of 31, 273 passing yards, a touchdown, and an interception, along with 7 carries for 16 yards. Justin Rankin, though, was the highlight reel for this Edmonton Elks team. And in my opinion, the reason why they won this game. 13 carries, 92 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Also had 5 receptions for 87 yards on the day. Stephen Dunbar, 7 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown, along with Curly Gittens Jr. having 5 receptions for 48 yards on the day. Elks total penalties, only 2 for 20 yards. They did a great job in staying out of trouble on this day. And you got to look at their defense, though. A little quiet, but they did enough. They had 1 fumble recovery and 2 sacks. On the other side for the Toronto Argonauts, Nick Arbuckle, probably one of his best performances in a loss this season. 30 of 42 for 382 passing yards and a passing touchdown, along with 7 carries for 11 yards. The Argos total rushing without Arbuckle, and this has been a situation we've been talking about all season long here in the Canadian Football League. 6 carries for 20 yards. That's it. That's all they could do without their running back. He was stuck, tongue out. Said,
Mr. Ick has arrived.
He said, "Ugh." I said, I'm not even cool with that. Like, I had to add the sound effects there. He said, "Ugh." Like, yeah, I'm making a short out of that later because that sound effect. Like, how you just gonna go out there with 6 carries for 20 yards, go and expect it's gonna be okay? Like, it's not gonna be okay. But and we saw that because the Elks, who have been one of the worst teams in the league for quite some time, beat you, and it's their 2nd consecutive win. Dejon Brissett, 7 receptions, 96 yards, along with Jake Herslow's 3 receptions for 38 yards and the 1 receiving touchdown. Hauled out the totals for the receivers for the day. The defense, they only mustered up an interception by Wynton McManus. They were pretty quiet, but their penalties is what really sent them over the edge. They had 8 for 90 yards. Our guy, Lirim, okay? Lirim, he came up there, completed 4 field goals on 4 attempts for 13 total points. Looking back at this game there, Ryan, what are your overall thoughts? Was it as close as the score shows, or was it just the Elks had this from the start?
The Elks not only had this from the start, but the Elks pulled away in the 4th quarter. They were up 13-10 at the half, and then they pulled away in the second half. It was Toronto kept it close, but I had a feeling this game is going to be Edmonton's. This is going to be Edmonton's day, and it was. And they showed it. They allowed no. They kept Cody Fajardo's uniform clean, at least on the sacks score sheet. They allowed no sacks. This was the first. I think this was the first time all season that their offensive line allowed 0 sacks on the quarterback, whether it be Ty Ford or whether it be Cody Fajardo. The Toronto Argonauts, my God. Absolute. Where's those dumpster Pelicans, Drew? Where are those dumpster Pelicans at?
I had a feeling that at some point soon you were going to pull up the dumpster Pelicanary.
There they are, right by right off the shores of Lake Ontario. There they are. Those
a loopy-loop for you too.
I see Nick Arbuckle right there. I see Ryan Dinwiddie right there. I see some of their defense over here. Yeah, those dumpster Pelicans were out and about, have been out and about since the beginning of the season. Toronto, this team won the Grey Cup last year.
That's a sad thing. Yeah.
How are you the Grey Cup champions, the defending Grey Cup champion? You're 2-8. You are 2-8, and I don't understand why you're 2-8. You've been in pretty much every single game this year. Last week they were up 22-1. I mean, a couple weeks ago they were up 22-1 on the Ottawa Red Blacks after the first quarter, and they blew that lead. something's going on this in Toronto this year. Part of it is the rushing offense, which is non-existent. I mean, have they even amassed 100 total yards of rushing offense this year?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm
It's
laughing
bad.
because it's funny. I'm laughing because of the pain.
At least somebody's getting some enjoyment out of it. I mean, this is tough. I'm glad this is not the Rough Riders because I would be having another meltdown.
Yeah, this was like, let's see, team offense. Toronto is actually 7th in team offense and net, but they have 482 yards rushing this year in 10 games. The Hamilton Tiger Cats are in 8th place with 770. They have over 300 yards more than the Toronto Argonauts do this year. And last year, their bell cow running back, Kadeem Carey, was the primary factors in helping the Toronto Argonauts get to the Grey Cup. And right before the season begins, he's released. Signs with the Rough Riders. Unfortunately, he suffers a bad leg injury, and he's lost for the season. But like, you let your best running back go, who's been your bread and butter the last couple seasons. You just the week before season begins. We're good to go. We don't need you anymore. I don't know if it was a cost cutting. I'm pretty sure it was a cost cutting measure because it's a very strict salary cap in the Canadian Football League. But yeah, this is just bad. 2-8 to start the season. We're just over the halfway point now, and the Toronto Argonauts have sailed, no pun intended, into the point of no return at this point, because you had your shot to get back on the horse, get back on the win column. You've had that opportunity several times, but either the defense lets you down, or there's no rushing attack, or there's a bad pass by Nick Arbuckle, who is, he's doing his best to be QB1, but he's clearly not QB1. And I don't know what the status of Chad Kelly is for the rest of the season. I have a feeling he's probably not going to be coming back this year. That ankle injury had to be that bad for him to miss the entire season. I don't know if he's having setbacks in therapy. I don't know if it's just his heart's not in it. But yeah, you definitely tell that this Toronto Argonauts team is missing their leader. And their leader is Chad Kelly. Now for the Elks, the Elkamos, stay with Cody Fajardo. Stay with him for the rest of the year, because he's the guy who is leading you to victories. You're now 3-8 or 3-7. Excuse me. You're still a couple points out of a playoff spot. You're 3-6. Excuse me. You've only played 9 games, but you're 4 points behind BC, and a couple more wins. A couple more points, because again, they go in the CFL. They go by points. They don't go necessarily by win loss. They go by points. So you get 2 points for a win, 1 point for a tie. I mean, I guess I've mentioned this a couple weeks ago. This team is a couple of plays away from being plus in the win column for the first time in a very, very long time. I think the last time the Elks were in the playoffs was when they were the Eskimos in 2019. I'm trying to remember 2019 or 2018. So it's been a while, and the Edmonton football fan is wondering when we're going to have a successful team. I think this season, like the last 2 weeks especially, have been kind of the turning point for this Elks team. And if they can get a couple more wins and a couple more W's in the win column, get a couple more points, this team might be in playoff contention come probably mid-September, end of September. That's when the playoff push really comes along. But at this point, I mean, I don't think look, stranger things have happened. Strange things always happen in football. Happen all the time. No matter what league you're in, strange things always seem to happen. And if the Elks can put a couple more wins together, get some momentum going, especially entering into the back-to-back Labor Day Classics, which are happening next week, back-to-back weeks against Calgary, a very tough Calgary team. This week they've got who they got this week. They got the Ottawa Red Blacks tonight in Ottawa. So I mean, even Ottawa is having is doing pretty good in the momentum swing. They took Winnipeg, which was actually I figured the last week's game between Winnipeg and Ottawa is our game of the week by default because these 3 games were not great at all, like you mentioned, Drew. But yeah, Edmonton's starting to pick things up. Stay with Cody Fajardo at quarterback. Give the ball to Justin Rankin. He's your primary guy on offense. He helps the offense go. And the defense just needs to make plays. They made plays. They got a fumble recovery last week. They had 2 sacks. They had some key plays late in the game to keep the score the way it was. And, you know, I said Mark Killam was my snowflake of the week a couple weeks ago because of some plays that he with some decisions that he made, but he's starting to mature as a coach. And, you know, if things don't work out this year for the Elks, I've got my eye on them for 2026. So, hey, Edmonton Elks, congratulations, getting the win column one more time. I hope you hope things pan out for you this season. But this man's Toronto Argonauts team is just the oars have come off.
It's wild. You know, 2 weeks ago, the Elks are at 1-6, and it was not looking good. You would have thought that 2 weeks ago, looking at this matchup, that the Argonauts should have this game pretty easily. But things have changed in the last 2 weeks for the Elks as they've been able to turn it around with 2 consecutive wins, now 3-6. Both teams in dead last in their respective divisions. Argonauts 2-8 in the East, and the Elks 3-6 in the West. But when it comes to the amount of points that they have given up, the Argonauts have given up 320 points in comparison to the Elks' 261. The Argonauts' defense has been literally non-existent, and part of that is affected by their offense not giving them enough time to rest because they have no running game, and they're not out there on the field on the average, like, you know, for the same amount of average time as the average team in the league. Like they have the quickest drives, it feels like, when I watch these games.
I'm actually looking at the team stats right now through week 11. Toronto 2 and outs 38% of the time.
Wow.
That's not good. Not good at all.
So bad. It's so bad, man. But, you know, sometimes when you have a championship season like they did last year, and when we were talking about them throughout last year, I was one of them, and you can talk for yourself. I don't want to speak for yourself on this, but, you know, I didn't see Toronto winning the CFL, you know, in the Grey Cup last year, talking about how they were playing throughout the season. At this point, in comparison to last year, when looking at this, they weren't 2-8 through 10 games last year. They did not dig themselves into this hole. It is safe to say, even though they play several games in a season in this league, they are not going to repeat as champions this year. And they would literally have to, from this week forward, win every single game moving forward throughout this season to even have a chance, not just to make the playoffs, but to be on that kind of a run in the rhythm to actually do something with that. So
they were 6-5 at this point last year.
It's a completely different team, though. You know, they don't have the same quarterback playing. You know, they don't. You know, what's going on with him? Did he? We talked about him a little bit at the beginning of the season, but we haven't brought him up in a while. What's up with him? Why is he not there?
We don't know. I mean, he was originally on the 6-game injured list to start the season, but I don't know what's going on with his therapy with his ankle, because he had that really bad ankle injury in the East Final last year, which led to this point, which brings us to this point. But I don't know what his rehab process is right now. I don't know if he's missing them, or he's just not reporting to practice. I honestly, I wish I had a read on it, but yeah, I mean, this lineup goes, this offense, it goes through Chad Kelly, and when Chad Kelly's not there, it's a totally different team.
Well, we'll see what happens in the future with this team, but it's not looking good for the remainder of this season. We do have a few comments out here in the chat. Ike is here and says, "Yo, what's up, fellas?"
Hey, Ike, what's going on, buddy?
Appreciate you being here, along with our guy, who I can't wait to see on the streams tomorrow. Let's cook, fellas, says our guy, Corey Mann, with 2 N's back in the house.
Nice. What's going on, Corey?
Over 40 episodes of The Grind on Sartoba. He has been absolutely crushing it with his coverage of WWE action. Make sure you guys get a chance to go back and see it every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, streaming on Sartoba. And you may see him on another show that you'll see a brand new commercial for here in our one and only commercial break today. So you've seen it. I removed the one part and saved 2 seconds. But talk about that later on. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say that word on here because I used AI for a reason. So that way, if it cusses, you can't get mad at me. But anyway, with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and take this on into the next game on the slate. So that was the Friday game. And for some reason, I'm not the greatest at clicking the Friday transition, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the Saturday one. As we have 2 games on Saturday to recap, and we have to take a look at the team known as the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I finally get to say it again because I had to have a break from it last week. Mr. McCarthy, you know how much of a growing homer I've become of this team over the last 2 years. And why? Because of the way this defense plays and hits the other team right in the mouth. That's what I see when I watch this team known as the Rough Riders, because they absolutely beat down our guy that we like to talk about, Bo Levi Mitchell, in this game. 29-9 was the final score. The Saskatchewan Roughriders win this game at home. Trevor Harris, 21 of 27 for 307 passing yards. Not 1, not 2, but 3 passing touchdowns. He did have a turnover by throwing an interception, but he made up for that with 1 carry for 9 yards. Almost for a first down. AJ Ouellette, 18 carries on the day on the ground for 84 rushing yards. 3 receptions for 33 yards in the air as well. Dante Myers, 3 receptions for 76 yards, along with a receiving touchdown. Keyshawn Johnson, 8 receptions for 117 receiving yards.
Damn ball.
Tommy Neild, 4 receptions for 39 yards and a touchdown, along with Joe Robustelli's 3 receptions for 36 yards and a receiving touchdown, round out the 3 passing touchdowns by the one and only Trevor Harris. The Rough Riders defense, 6 sacks on the day, along with 2 interceptions by Roland Milligan and Tavon Campbell. The total penalties for the Rough Riders, 5 for 64 yards. The low light point of the night, though, for this team was their kicker, who has been letting them down on multiple occasions this year. He has not been consistent. He's been very inconsistent, and that's Brett Lowthers. 2 completed field goals out of 4 attempts, missing 2 field goals that if the Tiger Cats were clicking on all cylinders like they have been for several weeks this year, that could have cost them. But unfortunately for the Tiger Cats, they could not get it done. And for the Rough Riders, this didn't really matter too much, but they've got to tighten that up if they want to make a playoff run, because there's no way that you can rely on your kicker in several points. And then you get to the playoffs, especially in a short playoffs as the CFL is. And 1 mistake and 2 mistakes like this can cost you a game at that spot. Bo Levi Mitchell, as I spoke about, 16 completed passes out of 31 attempts for 201 passing yards, 2 interceptions, 4 carries for 26 yards, round out his stat line, but had nothing positive really going on the day, as he really only completed 50% of his passes and didn't even get the ball in the end zone. Greg Bell, 10 carries for 55 yards, along with 5 receptions for 52 yards, had over 100 all-purpose yards on the day, but couldn't really muster too much out of it as the team only put up 9 points at the end of it. Kenny Lawler, 3 receptions for 62 yards, and Shamar Bridges, 4 receptions for 35 yards, round out the offense. The Tiger Cats defense had 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery, and an interception by Destin Talbert. Despite all that, They couldn't keep the Rough Riders on the low side of the point total. Tiger Cats total penalties, 7 for 79 yards. Their one bright spot, Mark Lehio Maehiho. 3 completed field goals for 3 attempts. 9 total points as a result. With all that being said, looking at how the Tiger Cats have been on their run this year and doing what they've been doing, having a pretty decent year, was this a team that we can say that if they faced them in the playoffs could be their kryptonite in the Saskatchewan Rough Riders?
Only if they get to the Grey Cup, because this was shaping up to be a potential Grey Cup preview with the way that Hamilton has been playing the last couple of weeks, actually the last month or two. They've been on a pretty good tear, and Saskatchewan has been a very consistent team throughout the season, except for one hiccup against Calgary back in July, based on the postponement of their game at home against the Calgary Stampeders. If that hiccup doesn't happen, this team's 9-0 right now. But this was just the theme of the day for the Rough Riders. This was their defense. Their defense did a solid job against one of the best offenses in the Canadian Football League, against arguably the best quarterback of the Canadian Football League. They harassed Bo Levi Mitchell all day long. His completion percentage was just over 50%. 201 yards. I mean, when was the last time you saw Bo Levi Mitchell throw for less than 300 yards in a game? Just barely go over 201 yards, over 200 yards. It's been a very long time. But they held the Tiger Cats offense, didn't do a whole lot of movement in this game, and the Rough Riders made him pay. Let's see, total rushing yards. 100. Saskatchewan had over 100 yards rushing, but Trevor Harris was the guy who spread the ball around. Only 6 incompletions, was very efficient, 307 yards, was throwing the ball to numerous receivers. If you look at the stats, you only rattled off a handful of receivers that he threw to, but he found 6 different receivers on the day. And that was including AJ Ouellette, the running back. But the one guy who's starting to establish himself as Trevor Harris's favorite target, give him the damn ball, Keyshawn Johnson. He's having a stellar season. Had a breakout season last year. He's continuing that momentum this year. 117 yards, no touchdowns in this game, but he had 25 yards after catch. And it's very important for a team that's kind of lagging in yards after catch this year. So, but it doesn't really matter because it's a very balanced attack with AJ Ouellette as your primary running back, Trevor Harris doing what he's done over the last decade or so. He has a Grey Cup ring under his belt, but that was as a backup with the Red Blacks back in 2016 under Henry Burris. That was one of Henry Burris. I think it was Henry Burris's last game in the CFL. Henry Burris, shout out to him at Florida, currently coaching at Florida A&M. But Saskatchewan was showing you in this game. I watched the highlights, but I also was listening here and there to the game. Like this team is balanced on offense. On defense, they're going to harass the quarterback, and it's evident in the fact that they currently actually it's great on both sides of the ball. Let's talk about the offensive line. Offensive line allowed 1 sack in this game. They've only allowed 11 sacks all year. And this was a squad that has been banged up over the last couple seasons, but they've found the right mix of people to they found the right mix of men to help keep Trevor Harris upright. On the flip side, Saskatchewan currently leads the CFL with 28 total quarterback sacks, and he had 6 sacks last week against Hamilton. I believe, actually, you still have the stat sheet from last week. Actually, they didn't play last week. Sorry. 2 weeks ago, they had, I think, 6 or 7 sacks against the Edmonton Elks in a game that they only won by 5. But they had a handful of sacks against them. So this team can get after the quarterback. They can make sure that if you harass the quarterback enough, it'll lead to turnovers, whether it be a fumble, whether it be an interception. Bo Levi Mitchell had 2 taken away from him, 2 passes stolen in this game with Roland Milligan, one of my favorite number 43s. Well, no, it wears number 0. And Tavon Campbell, who are ball hawks, absolute ball hawks. And if Saskatchewan stays healthy, they can earn themselves a playoff spot by probably middle of September. But they have a tough schedule to get through. They have Calgary this week. Then they have the Labor Day Classic on Sunday and the Banjo Bowl the following Saturday against Winnipeg. Those are always tough games. No matter what the records are. Throw the records out the window when it comes to the Labor Day Classic and when it comes to the Banjo Bowl. So that's gonna be a gauntlet for the next 3 weeks. But this is Saskatchewan Roughriders team. They've impressed me. They've impressed me this year, and they're healthy. They're good. They're balanced offense. You have to the quarterback on defense, and that's why they're 8-1. They're currently 8-1. By the way, Drew, fun fact: the last time they started their season 8-1 was in 2013. You know when the last time they won the Grey Cup?
2013. Yep, they did. You're absolutely right. And I think what's most impressive about what the Rough Riders did this weekend, the Rough Riders! I think what's most important about what they did is they did this against the highest scoring team in the CFL. They did it against the highest scoring team in the East Division, of course, but in the entire CFL. The Tiger Cats are the only team that have put up 300 total points. They're literally right dead smack at 300 even. No other team at this point in the season has scored 300 points. However, they have given up 100 more points than the Rough Riders. The Rough Riders, when you look at everybody else statistically, have given up the least amount of points. Their defense, it was literally the matchup of the number 1 defense versus the number 1 offense, because Bo Levi Mitchell has been slinging it this year. They've had help on special teams with Mark Leggio. He's had games where he's made like 6 field goals. So, we've talked about how consistent they've been on special teams and on offense this year. The catalyst to their problems, though, is their defense being inconsistent. And, with Saskatchewan, they've got a better defense than their offense, of course. But Trevor Harris has been making smart decisions where he's had a lot of games where he's only had like 5 or 6 incompleted passes, and he's throwing more touchdowns than interceptions, which is always a good plus. And you've had a balanced running attack for the most part with AJ Ouellette. You've had a couple games where you faced a tough defense, and that's shown in the stat line. But overall, they've remained pretty consistent on offense and have been an absolute terror on defense, which is why we had the game that we had this week. And this is the team that, if the Tiger Cats make it to the Grey Cup, they, like you said, they are going to have a hell of a field day, because this is an example of what that game could look like. However, if the Saskatchewan Roughriders are able to stay at the current form and everybody play at this status once we get to the Grey Cup, I don't think it matters who they play. I think this year is going to be their year if they all stay healthy and remain clicking on all cylinders. So, with all that being said, we do have a few more comments. Okay. Saskatchewan Roughriders. There you go. Oh, and even Ike said, never gets old hearing Roughriders. And apparently, 3 minutes ago, you did not do it right.
Try my best, Desi, okay? Give me a break.
But hey, she loves when I say Rough Riders. All right, I gotta stop because I gotta save it for later for when we get to the 2-minute drill and preview this upcoming week. But it was fun to be able to talk about them this week. Didn't get to do so. And this was one matchup I've been really looking forward to when you've got the number one offense against the number one defense. This is a lot of the times how it plays out, because defense is key when it comes to winning matchups. You either got to have a pretty well-balanced one, or you got to have one that overshadows your offense to make up for the miscues that your offense has. Fortunate for Saskatchewan at this point in the year, through week 11, they haven't had but so many inconsistencies on offense to where the defense has had to clean up so much. But it's looking really, really good at the midway point of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can pull off for the rest of this season as a homer and as a fan of football. But when it comes to that, let's go ahead and take it into our next game. And for the next game, we have to talk about an absolutely lopsided contest. And a lot of that has to deal with the fact that the one team is missing their starting quarterback. They're missing the law offices of McLeod Bethel Thompson, as he has been nursing an injury after getting the expletive beat out of him not that long ago. This past Saturday night, 7:00 p.m. Eastern time, we saw this matchup between the Montreal Alouettes, who were traveling on the road to see the BC Lions in British Columbia. And when you look at this contest here, 36-18 was the final score here, and it wasn't even close from the jump. The Lions had this from start to finish. Nathan Rourke looked pretty good. 26-34, 382 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. Did throw an interception, but I believe in my mind he made it up with 2 carries for 31 yards. James Butler on the ground, though, 16 carries for 81 yards. He also had 2 receptions for 12 yards on the day. Keon Hatcher went video game mode in this contest. 11 receptions for 156 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Justin McInnes also had 5 receptions for 66 receiving yards and a touchdown. Stanley Berryhill III rounded out the 4 touchdown passing on the day game for Nathan Rourke with 3 receptions for 51 receiving yards and a touchdown. The defense had 3 sacks and an interception by Micah All. The one thing that they could not control themselves on, and surprisingly didn't cost them the game, 12 total penalties for a whopping 137 penalty yards. Sean White on special teams completed 3 field goals out of 3 attempts for 12 total points. For the Alouettes, backup quarterback James Morgan, 20 of 33 for 211 passing yards, a touchdown and an interception, along with 4 carries for 10 yards on the day. Not terrible, but just wasn't enough to get them over the hump. Travis Thies, 5 carries for 26 yards, along with Stevie Scott's 4 carries for 23 yards, are the totals that the running backs were only able to put up on this day. Charleston Rambo, 5 receptions for 46 yards, not Speaker, along with Kyle Speakers, 5 receptions for 111 receiving yards and a touchdown, round out the totals for the receiving corps. The Alouettes' total penalties, 6 for 94 yards. Besides that, there wasn't really much else to talk about for that team. And with that being said, with this lopsided contest, Ryan, what are your overall thoughts looking back on it from this past Saturday night?
To quote Mr. Ick, I mean, as a Montreal Alouettes fan, man, this team, they're missing so many people on offense. They're letting their defense down. Their defense is not, this game notwithstanding, is one of the better defensive units in the entire CFL. This game, though, they couldn't stay. The offense couldn't stay on the field, and it was actually Caleb Evans who started this game for the Alouettes because McLeod Bethel Thompson went in the 6-game injured list. Davis Alexander, their starting quarterback from week 1 on, has been on the 6-game injured list. and Caleb Evans tore his ACL in the first quarter of this game. So now you're depending on former New York Jets great James Morgan, and I say that with a grain of salt because he was their 2020. He's a 2020 draft pick for the Jets, and the only memorable moment I have of him is throwing a Hail Mary in one of the final preseason games in 2021, which won them a preseason game, but that's neither here nor there. So they got to depend on him. It's their fourth quarterback this year. And they signed Shea Patterson earlier this week to kind of get more bodies in the room. But you're missing your best quarterback. You're still missing two of your best receivers in Austin Mack and Tyson Philpott. They're still injured. So you got to depend on smaller receivers who more so belong in the slot than they do out wide, because you don't have that big body presence to help to get you the big yards. And also you don't have a rushing attack also, because your running game's getting taken away. I mean, this couple of years ago, this team was relying on William Stanback, who is now currently in Ottawa. And in this game, they only managed 51 yards on 10 attempts. And in football, you need an ample running attack. And what's interesting is I look at the stats for the CFL for the league, and the current leaders in rushing, in team rushing, they're all in the West, with the exception of Ottawa, with the exception of Edmonton. Montreal ranks 7th in total rushing yards. It's not going to win you games, and they're currently 5-6 and we're talking about Thursday's game in a moment, but this is a team that's limping towards September. And even though they're in second place in the East, if they were to host a playoff game today, it would be against this same BC Lions team. And I'm pretty sure you would see the same result, even though they're at home and with a raucous crowd at Percival Molson Stadium, who always brings it every single week, regardless of who they play and how their Alouettes are doing. If these two teams were to play today in the playoffs, which is what it would be, this would be the same result, which was sad. Which would be sad because this Alouettes team they won the Grey Cup 2 years ago. So I'm hoping everybody gets healthy. Hopefully in September, get some bodies back in the offense, particularly Alexander, Mack, and Philpott, and they can start winning some games again. On the flip side, we talk about our top quarterbacks in the CFL. You talk about your Trevor Harrises. You talk about your Bo Levi Mitchells. Nathan Work's name doesn't really get brought up in a whole lot of conversations. And he had a great game against a defense that is typically a team that will get after the quarterback, very similar to Saskatchewan. They'll get after the quarterback. They'll try to force the opposing quarterback to make mistakes. And Nathan Work did not have a whole lot of mistakes in this game. He had one interception, 26-34, nearly threw for 400 yards in this game, 4 touchdowns against a team. He scorched Alouettes defense, particularly the secondary that is full of ball hawks. And Keon Hatcher had a great game himself. He's currently the league leader in receiving yards with, let's see, how many yards does he have? Oh, darn it. 878 total yards, and we're at week 11. So he gets himself a nice game. He was over 1,000 yards already. Keon Hatcher, James Butler helping out balancing out that offense with 81 yards of his own. And the defense contributed too. And this defense has been criticized for being too soft. They're not getting out to the quarterback enough. They're not forcing too many turnovers. Well, they forced a turnover in this game. They got an interception by Micah Awe, 3 sacks. Defense, not the defense, the total penalties you mentioned, Drew. 12 penalties in this game, and it's sloppy. Even for a win this big, it's still sloppy. It's 12 penalties. I gotta address that. And the next week with head coach Buck Pierce, he's probably gonna clean that up because he's got to clean that up because this week they have the Toronto Argonauts. Okay, never mind. But he's still got to clean that up. 12 penalties in a big win. That's unacceptable. Like if my team were to win this big, and you have 6 penalties, I'd be okay with it as long as they're okay penalties. But 12 penalties, man, this game could have been worse if they don't commit those 12 penalties. But yeah, this Montreal Alouettes team, they gotta heal. They gotta heal up. They gotta get their offensive starters back because this offense has been. It's not as they're not as good of a team if they don't have all the starters that they need to get back on track. And this season's going to slip away if they don't get healthy and get their offensive starters back. And it's going to be relying on the defense, but you help your defense when you stay on the field. And Montreal couldn't do it in this game. And it showed. It showed in the score line. It showed in the stat sheet.
You're absolutely correct. I'm going to say this to myself. For saying his name was Micah Awe and not Micah Alway, okay? You had it on point to where I'm like, damn! It's going to get to a point to where I'm going to throw this at myself into this manner.
This has been yet another Beating a Dead Horse presentation.
Yeah,
because this episode isn't quite over yet.
That's one of the best the funny tropes about this show. Like you're not pronouncing names right.
yes. I need to just make like a compilation of all the things I said wrong in this show. It'd probably be as long as an episode, and it would be shenanigery at its finest.
I will give you credit though. You are starting to pronounce AJ Ouellette's name correctly because you used to call him AJ Alouette, and I was like, stop calling him.
When you have that and then like the Alouettes in there, like it rolled off the tongue,
French name.
Plus, I'm still finding myself, nearly 3 years later, almost still finding ways that like I'm not pronouncing certain things the same, and I got to practice it, and then like it's like a spelling bee. I feel like I'm preparing for where I'm like saying certain things over and over and over again just to get that muscle memory of the speaking to make sure it gets right. I'm still finding myself doing that after all this time. That does not make a full excuse for AJ Ouellette. A lot of that has to do with being here with you and then hearing how you're saying it. I still can't get Liram's name right. I'm gonna that up from here to the end of time because I'm just gonna still keep calling him Liram or something because it makes a lot better of a sound me saying that than what I actually think his last name is.
I remember when you called him Liram Honolulu. That's one of the best pronunciations.
I might have to try to find some time over the next like week and a half to make like some type of special like reel or something for the 100 episodes to look back
blooper
on.
reel,
like a blooper reel, a special episode of just bloopers. Like episode 100 may come out before the actual episode 100 of just me and bloopers and Cole and whoever else was on here. But imagine all those hours I'd have to sift through to find that stuff.
Goodness,
I'm gonna have to get started at some point tonight looking at that, but I digress when it comes to that. We've now gone through the Friday games, the Saturday games, and we have to take a look at a game that just happened last night, and that is the Thursday contest between the Blue Bombers and the Alouettes. And in this contest, Brady Oliveira, shown there now for the second consecutive week in their highlight thumbnail, absolutely was a beast yet again. And I can't give this guy enough credit. I really can't, because he literally is the workhorse for this team. I mean, you've said it several times, for a couple seasons. I mean, and acknowledged it, and the stat line doesn't lie. He absolutely has been crushing it for this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team. And, Zach Collaros put up 27 completed passes out of 31 attempts last night. That's pretty close to video game. We talked about video game stats earlier, with the receiver, Keon Hatcher for the Lions. We now got to talk about the fact that we had a quarterback nearly throw 100% in a game. That's
Cody Fajardo a few weeks ago.
Yes, and that's really tough, to do that and have 263 passing yards, a touchdown, no turnovers, through all those passing attempts. Really impressive. 3 carries for 13 yards on the day. But the real stat line when it comes to the carries was with his running back, Brady Oliveira. You speaking of video game, look at what this man did. Over 200 total all-purpose yards in this game between rushing and receiving. 16 carries for 137 16 carries for 137 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, along with 9 receptions for 73 yards. Wow. Absolutely wild watching those highlights. I loved every single second of watching those this morning. Had 25 total plays he was involved in between rushing and receiving and put up over 200 yards. They need to keep feeding him the football. Like literally, they should be better than 6-4 and in the middle of their West division at this point when you have somebody like this who's put up numbers consistently throughout this season like that man is. Like Brady Oliveira, you don't make playoffs this year, this team, with that running back, with that house leading you the way, the modern day version of the fridge, then you have literally wasted the talents of a great running back in your league. Like literally, in my opinion, personal opinion, outside of Ouellette, and I probably am being a homer with saying that, but I feel like he's the second best running back in the league behind Ouellette. But anyway, with all that being said, Keurig Wheatfall, 3 receptions, 64 receiving yards, and Nick Dembski had 4 receptions for 25 receiving yards and a touchdown. The Blue Bombers' total penalties, 4 for 35 yards on the day. Blue Bombers defense, 2 interceptions. Evan Holm with his second consecutive game of an interception. And Trey Vival, who was huge 2 weeks ago in special teams with punt returns and kick returns in the same game and has had interceptions at certain points throughout this year, puts up another one to round out those 2 interceptions for the Blue Bombers. Sergio Castillo, absolutely perfect on special teams, 4 of 4 for 14 points. On the other side for the Owlettes, I'm now saying Owlettes a little bit differently now because got me messed up, Brian McCarthy. I'm trying my best. Headbutt my microphone and everything. But when it comes James Morgan on the other side, 18 completed passes out of 33 attempts for 198 passing yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, along with 4 carries for 6 yards on the day. Travis Thies, 8 carries for 36 yards, second consecutive game of him being the leading running back, but for what? For 36 yards on 8 attempts? This is dumpster Pelican worthy. Terrible. Very much a shame. 2 receptions for 13 yards, though. That's what you get from me. Alexander Hollins, 5 receptions, 132 receiving yards. And Tyler Snead, 6 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. Round out the highlights for that offense. 4 penalties for 40 total yards is what cost them in this game. Same amount of penalties as the other side of the Blue Bombers, but for more yards. And that did not help out their cause. Losing by 2 scores by double digits and at home on Thursday night's Week 12 opener. Looking back on this, was it the Brady Oliveira show that absolutely sent this to the moon for them? Or was it the fact that Zach Collaros went nearly perfect on the day as their quarterback?
Yes.
Both.
Yeah. This was vintage Winnipeg Blue Bombers bully ball. This is the bully ball that has brought them to 4 consecutive Grey Cups, 4 West Division titles. They're looking at their 5th in a row. They want to be the dynasty. They want to be the modern day dynasty. They want to be the Bombers dynasty. that is going to they want to win that third championship in 5 years, because as we all know, 3 titles in 10 years is a dynasty. They want to do
Mhm.
in 5. So this is bully ball. This was Winnipeg Blue Bombers bully ball all night long. 132 yards rushing for Brady Oliveira. He was showing his most outstanding player performance like he had last year, like he had last year. Now currently he is, looking at stats, he's fourth in the league in rushing. You talk about him being in the same category as AJ Ouellette, yes, but don't forget there's a certain running back in BC named James Butler who's currently leading the CFL in rushing with 785 yards, and Dedrick Mills of Calgary is right behind him. So, but that being said, Brady Oliveira showing the vintage Brady Oliveira that he was over the last 2 or 3 seasons. Kolaris, efficient night, only 4 incompletions, had a touchdown, was finding different receivers all over the place, including, if I'm looking at the stats correctly, he threw to 8 different receivers, and that included Brady Oliveira. Brady Oliveira by himself had over 200 yards of offense, 73 yards receiving, 137 yards on offense. I would say he's probably an early candidate for Grand Champ of the Week for next week. For next week, that's just me. Defense, again, two interceptions. It looks like they didn't register a sack on the day. They did not. Oh, they were kept off the board, which is interesting. Which is very interesting. Usually they probably get at least 1 or 2 sacks. But again, Montreal Alouettes, short week, 5 days. They're back at home playing a Winnipeg Blue Bombers team who played last Thursday as well. And it kind of showed because James Morgan got his first CFL start. Last week he filled in for Caleb Evans, who went down with injury very early. This week he gets the start and unfortunately throws 2 interceptions. One of them towards the end of the game. One of them was towards the end of the game where they're trying to keep the game trying to keep the scoreline respectable. But unfortunately, it didn't work out in the cards. Had a couple of big chunk plays early in the game, and that included a passing play by Tyler Snead for 44 yards, which was pretty big.
It was.
Yeah, and then it also had a 45-yard passing play to Alexander Hollins, who just joined the team a couple weeks ago. He had a nice little game himself for 132 yards, which was the majority of James Morgan. James Morgan's favorite target with 5 receptions of his own. But it looked like Montreal was gonna try to keep the game respectable, try to keep the game close, at least in the first half. But then only 3 points the rest of the way. Only had a field goal the rest of the way, and they were trying to keep things competitive. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. On the strength, if you could say that, of 60 rushing yards total. I mean, it's better than last week when they only had 51, but still, they had to find a way to get a running attack going, and it's not going to work out if you're relying on a handful of if you're doing a running back by committee. On defense, they had a couple sacks, but it was just a rough night if you're a Montreal Alouettes fan, especially if you're watching 35 over almost 36 minutes of possession for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The Blue Bombers had the ball for almost 36 minutes in this game. So it's Montreal's got, like I said, they need to get healthy at the right positions, quarterback, wide receiver especially, because it's not going to be James Morgan, or I don't think Shea Patterson will be leading them on for the rest of the year. They need to get healthy at quarterback. They need to get healthy at wide receiver because they got to stay in the field. They help their defense and stay on the field. And they couldn't do it in this game.
They absolutely could not. The struggle definitely was real to remain awesome for them in this game. But the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they kept strong and made it happen out here in these streams on the TV for all of us to see, especially in the, on TV and also on YouTube. But for this 26-13 for the Blue Bombers, they are cooking at this point in the season, getting things to 2 consecutive wins after being 500 2 weeks ago. They are now 6-4 in the middle of the West Division, in a very tough division when you have a team like the Rough Riders doing what they're doing, followed by the Stampeders, who've had a resurgence behind Vernon Adams Jr. when he's been able to be on the field. 6-3 so far this year for them, and in second place behind the Rough Riders. So the Blue Bombers got to continue to remain consistent. They got to feed Oliveira the ball in order to have a chance to be in the top 4 that make the playoffs, to have a run at the Grey Cup. So with this being said, Ryan, we've had a pretty interesting opening drive recapping these 4 games right here. But we have to take our one and only commercial break. You guys are going to see one ridiculous commercial in there. All right.
Yeah.
But it's going to be awesome. It'll entertain you and it'll get you excited for what's to come this Sunday night. But with all that being said, we'll see you here on the other side of this few-minute long commercial break after these messages.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Ready.
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this. Join Ryan McCarthy
I became a Jets fan because Kermit the Frog was my favorite Muppet because he was green, and the Jets wore green. That's how I became a Jets fan.
and Dustin Henry
ESPN is cashing all in on let's pay a few personalities and we'll just kind of fill in the gaps.
as they walk you through all of the world of sports from their perspective.
The Albany Empire, it's a literal circus.
No credentials required. Ryan, say the tag.
Where you don't need a press pass to talk sports.
Live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on YouTube and where you can find podcasts.
Hey, what's good, everybody? This your boy Corey, host of The Grind, where we talk about all things WWE. You can catch The Grind every single Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern. 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on Sertoba Media. If you're not following Sertoba Media, then what are you doing? Like, share, subscribe. There are many different things that we have available on Sertoba Media for your viewing pleasure. And what else you got to do on a Saturday afternoon? Come spend some time with me. Come spend some time with my colleagues on this platform. Help us be able to bring everything that you all want to see. Matter of fact, you know what? If you ain't did it yet, I got something for you. Stay true to what you do. Stay true to why you do. And always stay true to you.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Do you like talking sports? Do you like entertainment? Do you like the occasional series of heated discussions?
Are you in and out, Drew?
With that said,
Drew, I'm hearing a bunch of stuff in your mind. I know you know this team very well. Are you in and out, my friend?
Then you must see this. Drew Willingham versus random panelists. Who wins? You decide on the In or Out Sports Debate. Live. Whenever the we feel like it. Eastern Standard Time. Exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
It's time for the grand mother, father, and champ of the week. Back we are from that commercial break. Before we get started with that grand champ of the week, by the way, are you excited for the return based on that last commercial?
Yay.
Mr. McCarthy, you had a multiple time Vault of Fame inductee. I expected more out of you there.
Yes, let's go. Internet Sports Debate, baby. Let's go.
Got to get the No Creds crew back on here soon because, we got to have some fun on there. But this Sunday night, as I had to use as an opening to bring this in, episode 122, following last week's return, episode 121. This week, 8:05 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, Kyle Nash, 15-time Vault of Fame inductee, returns to become, Nature Boy Ric Flair, 16-time Vault of Fame inductee, and actually tie Rob Johnson for second place on the Vault of Fame inductee leaderboard. Ryan McCarthy, you as well as a Vault of Fame inductee multiple time. Got to get you back on there. But this week, that devious smile of Kyle Nash will be coming in there with the fire to try to take me down and my title. But you can't take my title because I will come in ready to rock and roll. This Sunday, 8:05 p.m. Eastern Time, exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. Now, we are back. We have the grand champ of the week to discuss. And Ryan, go ahead. Let them know. Who are you thinking for the grand champ of the week?
My grand champ for this week is from the Edmonton Elkamos, Justin Rankin, running back extraordinaire. 13 rushes, 92 yards, and a rushing touchdown to go with 5 receptions, 87 yards, no scores, but he is the cog that runs the offensive engine that is the Edmonton Elkamos. And I've talked about his story multiple times in this program. He's a player I've grown to watch over the last couple of seasons with the Elks, following his career, all the way from Indoor Football League all the way up to the Edmonton Elks of the CFL. And I've got to hope that he gets some NFL team looks at him for 2026. But in the meantime, he's ripping it up in Edmonton right now for the Elks as their offensive star, multi-purpose back, not only running the ball, but also catching out of the backfield, doing all the things correctly for the Edmonton Elks, and he's my grand champ of the week.
Solid pick there, Ryan. If you not picked him, I may have picked him because, looking at that, if we would have been able to have last night's game as a qualifier, because we normally do just the previous week, which was week 11 for it, and I would probably put Brady Oliveira on there, but he still qualifies for next week's episode. But with this, solid pick with Justin Rankin, because he absolutely crushed it in that game, and these past 2 wins from the Elks wouldn't be possible without Rankin literally ranking himself higher than other talent at the running back position. But, I had to make a pick that my co-host here may actually be like, what? It might be like feel like there's somebody else out there or a group of individuals out there who deserve the accolade more than who you're selecting, because in my mind, there is a team that has been displaying greatness throughout this season. So far, they only have 1 loss, and that is the team known as the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And I have to take a look at one individual who's leading the charge on one side of that team's attack, and that is their quarterback, Trevor Harris. 21-27 for completions, 307 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and had 1 rush for a total of 9 rushing yards. Trevor Harris leading the Saskatchewan Roughriders to a 29-9 victory over the Hamilton Tiger Cats, out-dueling Bo Levi Mitchell, who's a 2-time Grey Cup champ. Although it's a different team, you still had a team that was the number 1 offense to this point that you were facing. and you have been riding the coattails of a really, really, really good defense this season, and not necessarily expected for you to go out there and ball and throw with the type of completion rate that you were having. Yes, you had a turnover. Okay. I did highlight that in this. However, I don't feel like it should outshadow what you accomplished so far, not only in this game, but for several games throughout this season, because there have been times where I picked Bo Levi Mitchell multiple times and in consecutive weeks for a little bit, just because of the way he was leading this Tiger Cats team, that when I look back on 2024 and what they did and how they let, that fan base down to what they've accomplished in 2025, I felt like for his veteran leadership of that team and what his stat line was, and considering how the week later he had a better stat line than the week prior with Bo Levi Mitchell, is why I gave it to him multiple weeks. This week, I was on the fence. You had Nathan Rourke and you had Trevor Harris, and you know me, I'm a fan of the quarterback position. Okay, I love the running back and other positions on the offense, but when I look at Grand Champ of the Week, I look at what's putting points on the board. The entertainment factor in that, from my personal opinion. And with that being said, it was the two of them that were back and forth. You could have made an argument for Keon Hatcher of the BC Lions for what he did with his 2-touchdown performance. You could make an argument for Ouellette as well on the Saskatchewan Roughriders, because he set the tone. But at the end of the day, looking back at week 11, outside of your pick, because your pick was great, if it wasn't for Rankin doing what he did on the offense for the Elks, they wouldn't have won that game, because Fajardo, he was doing good, but it wasn't to the status of what Rankin was making the impact on that game. Yes, he had the same amount of incompletions as Trevor Harris, but he didn't get the ball in the end zone as much as Trevor Harris did for his team. So as an individual, and you leaned more on Justin Rankin to get that win, which is why I have to make that argument. And you apparently, looking at the Elks team, you realize that as well, which is why you made him your overall pick as your Grand Champ of the Week out of everybody in the league, because he meant that much to that team. I feel the same way about Trevor Harris here. And, the defense put the pressure on the Tiger Cats in this game, but you still have to rely on the quarterback to drive. And although he made an interception in this game, there wasn't like turnover on downs issues. Like when you look over at Bo Levi Mitchell, had multiple turnover on downs in that game against this team known as the Rough Riders. He drove this bus and drove it straight to victory. And you look at other teams who did the same thing. When you have the pressure of now being the number one team in the league, riding behind what everybody knows is the defense that's leading the charge for you, you've got to be like the Brock Purdy of your team, getting your team to the Super Bowl from a couple of years ago, riding on that type of defense to get there. Because when you look at like the Eagles in the NFL, they have a more balanced offense, of course, because you got the addition of Saquon and a stupid defense, which is why they won the Super Bowl this past year in that league. But this team doesn't have that type of same luxury when it comes to the comparison of the two, nor is in the type of league that the Philadelphia Eagles are in. But he's doing a great job overall when you only have one loss and you've had some hiccups. When you can turn the ball over, even though it's only one time, you can turn the ball over and still win the game. And in games like the Lions, where Rourke was an honorable mention to me, even though I didn't make a graphic for it. But what really took it out was the fact that team had 12 penalties for 137 yards. Like, you can't drive a bus and have that many penalties, costing yourself that much, even though you still won by the amount that you did. You're doing it against a beat-down Alouettes team who is not what they were since the law offices of McLeod Bethel Thompson were in there, Ryan McCarthy.
Or Davis Alexander.
Yes, or Davis Alexander, or, John somebody off the street who can, play decent, like James Morgan. I mean, they're doing okay, but they're beat up in other areas. And you're going to talk more about that in a little bit of, I don't want to give it away, but you know what I'm saying. But right here and now, I'm really, really, really impressed with the Saskatchewan Roughriders team. I really, and whether I'm a fan or not, which is why I purposely wore my Commanders jersey today, just to show like, hey, it's okay. to be able to talk about them in a positive way and to be a fan and get excited about it. But you know as much as I do, and if you could look at the first season of Commander's Gridiron Report from a couple of years ago, you'll see I was hard on that team because they absolutely sucked, and they were 4-13. Sam Howell with 2 L's, as Kyle Nash would say, was stinking it up. But here, Trevor Harris, your running back Olet, you have your offensive line that's protecting you, and your defense is even better than your offense in much more ways. You got to be excited whether you're a fan of this team or not and just love watching football. But Trevor Harris is my pick for the well-rambled on Grand Champ of the week. But Ryan, I love your pick with Justin Rankin. We'll have to see if he can keep this up and at least lead the Elks to a respectable record this year after starting off 1-6. So we shall see. But with that being said, we're going to take this on into our next segment, known as the Gridiron Scoop. You have the click action right there with the cameras. Got it ready to rock and roll because with the Gridiron Scoop, we have talked about the fact that the Chiefs traded wide receiver Sky Moore and a 2027 7th round pick to the San Francisco 49ers for a 2027 6th round pick. When you look at that trade, how much of an impact do you believe this will make for both teams involved?
In the immediate, it's going to be better for the 49ers because they have a long list of receivers who are either dealing with injury or dealing with suspension. Brendan Ayuk, these are still recovering from that ACL injury from last year. Jawan Jennings, calf issues. Jordan Watkins, high ankle sprain, he'll miss week 1. Russell Gage, he injured his knee. Jacob Cowing, hamstring issue. Malik Turner, undisclosed injury. Demarcus Robinson, 3-game suspension because he pled no contest to a DUI charge. You also don't have Deebo Samuel. He's now a member of the Washington Commanders. So their depth, the 49ers and the immediate it's hurting right now. It's hurting. And if you could sweeten the deal with a 7th round pick to go to the 49ers for a 6th round pick next year. I mean, it's gonna help the 49ers next year. I'm sorry, 2027. So I didn't realize it was 2027. But this helps the 49ers in the immediate because their wide receiver depth is absolutely depleted right now. And I understand that they also acquired a running back this afternoon. They also acquired Brian Robinson from the
Commanders,
from your Commanders
for
team.
a 6th round pick, I believe. 6th round pick they gave him for that.
Let me double check because I put it in my Discord for 2026 6th round pick. So
yeah, I couldn't remember which year. I just knew it was a 6th round.
Yeah, it was 2026. So, but which tells me one of two things: either the Commanders are freeing up cap space so they
love Bill. They love their new running back, the rookie that's come in. He's known as Bill. It's Ja'Cory. I gotta go back and look his name real quick, but he wants to go by Bill. Like, he loves being called. That was a big thing in this past preseason game where Jaden Daniels and him looked pretty good, but Brian Robinson Jr. it was in a contract year. This was last year, and he was going to be wanting some money because he did a decent job, for the team. He's the one that accidentally got shot. But Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is the one that they are the one that they are a fan of, and he had 11 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown in that last preseason game. He's a new addition to this team that, coming out of college, 24 years old, out of New Mexico. It's going to do in the Arizona Wildcats. It's going to do great things for this franchise in their eyes.
I was getting back to my point.
Sorry.
Well, I was saying that it's either a roster move because they're going to re-sign Terry McLaurin because he He wants money. Or CMC is not back to 100% with his Achilles injury from last year.
It has
they
nothing.
need more depth.
The
That's just my
49ers
thought. That was just my thought.
No, you're there with the 49ers thought, like, no matter if it was Brian Robinson Jr. or some other free agent or another trade, they were looking for depth to help out with CMC.
Yeah.
But the Commanders, they have been discussing this for about a month about moving on from Brian Robinson Jr. because in camp they really like what Bill has been doing. And he literally, I promise you, I'm gonna saying Bill a lot on Total Football Talk. That is what he wanted to be called, and they said it a lot during that last preseason game. So because he wants to be called Bill, Bill Merritt, Bill Krosky Merritt, I guess we're gonna say that's his name. He's out there going to do great things for the Commanders. Congratulations to Brian Robinson Jr. on the new opportunity, and hopefully we see them in the playoffs at some point so both teams can get some action against each other with the move, and we'll see if it pans out. We'll see what that 6th-round pick does for the team too. But you're feeling like it was a decent move for the 49ers to help back up Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah. And I also think, again, the Sky Moore trade was just, they need fresh bodies at wide receiver right now.
Yeah, for that, but so and that I don't think it's going to make an impact really. Though I see what you're saying as far as they needed bodies, but as far as what did he do with a team that was in the Super Bowl last year?
He scored the game-winning touchdown against the Eagles a couple of years ago, a couple Super Bowls ago. So he contributed in that way, but no, with Rashee Rice and with Xavier
Worthy. If that's what I was about to say, if he was so good, they wouldn't have drafted Xavier Worthy, even though he was just available and he was there. But you wouldn't have had the need to draft wide receiver at that point, or even what you were probably thinking originally a 2nd or 3rd round pick. You didn't think Xavier Worthy was going to slip there, but he did, and you picked him up in the 1st round. You wouldn't really have the need there if Sky Moore was that much of an impact to that Chiefs offense. So to go into the 49ers, I don't think it's going to be that impactful for them. He's not a Brandon Ayuk.
No.
So we'll see. I'm looking forward to discussing this. This is actually going to be one of the topics on In or Out Sports Debate this Sunday night with Kyle Nash because he's a 49ers fan.
Ding.
So, yes, ding. So I figured it would be a good one for him. But I also figured with this, since the trade was just so fresh, looking at how the season's about to start up here in the next couple of weeks, do you see? Additional question to this question: do you see him suiting up for Game 1 and hauling in some catches? About 2 weeks into knowing a playbook.
It's a great question. He's gonna have to learn very quickly if he's going to be on the roster on September 7th. He's going to have to pick it up very, very quickly.
I haven't really, with the Commanders, I could definitely discuss it, in depth, but with the 49ers or really so much the Chiefs as far as to be able to compare the two. I'm not sure if maybe the 49ers feel like with the offenses that they two run that he'll be able to adapt pretty well with their play calling style and what they offer to their offense in comparison to if he was randomly traded somewhere, because even though he doesn't have much clout into the league, yes, he has played in a couple of Super Bowls, but he's not enough of a veteran where he can kind of command where he gets traded to. It's probably not written that way in his contract.
Well, also don't forget they picked up Hollywood Brown and they picked up Jalen Royals in the 4th round of the draft this year. So they probably figured one of them can make a difference in the roster, and that enabled them to make that trade because the 53-man roster spots due in a week for September for week 1. So they needed to make a move, and they needed to find some leeway to fit everyone they wanted in their personnel on the roster, and this was a way to do it and get some draft capital back.
I get that part, but I'm just saying as far as an impact for the 49ers, that's where he is now. I don't think he's going to be that impactful for that offense. Like, if you have Stars and CMC and your other receivers and Ayuk and they have been dealing with injury and getting the itis, not being able to play consistently.
The itis.
If you can't play, that's a problem. Like that to me, that's and you're going to go trade for somebody that you're giving up him and a 7th round pick. So you're getting that in the 49ers. You just basically gave up just a 6th round pick. You're not losing much in the process. So looking at the value of it, it's like you had to give up a pick and receive a pick, but you only downgraded 1 round. There's not much value there coming from that.
Well,
it's a little upside if he works out though with what you gave up though.
What did I say about an hour or so ago at the top of the show when it came to football? Football can be weird sometimes. Football can be a strange animal sometimes. You never know what's going to happen week to week. Very true.
Very true. I mean, you really don't. I mean, football is wild. It's just we'll see what the 49ers do, but they have not been the same since they made it to the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy in that first year. They've consistently kind of fell off in each game that we have watched, and it could be a different year, but we'll see here in about a month to 6 weeks. We can start looking at things at that point after about 4 games in and say it's going to be either an interesting year and a fun year to watch, or it's going to be a roller coaster of shenanigery along the way. One of the two is happening for the 49ers. Dante Hill is in the house. It says it's tough. The 49ers built a monster roster not to win a Super Bowl, and now an old aging roster. Hope Philly don't make the same mistake. Dante Hill, big fan of the Philadelphia Eagles. He and I have a mutual thing in common, and we hate the Dallas Cowboys. Absolutely hate the Dallas Cowboys. I know everybody, if you're not a Cowboys fan, everybody hates you, but, for the most part, not you as a person, but just your team. And Jarrell. But, me and Dante have even a deeper hate for the Cowboys just because we have to see them twice a year. When it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, especially with myself, my man Dante, we have mutual respect amongst our franchises for the long run. I'm happy that the Eagles finally had won a Super Bowl, when they got the first one with Nick Foles nearly 10 years ago, and then the one that they got last year. Of course, I didn't want to take that beating in the championship series. I'd much rather them had won the year before and given us the opportunity to win a Super Bowl last year, but I digress. You had Saquon, video game. It is what it is. But we have an interesting year ahead of us this year, 2 games to see what happens, and I'll be looking forward to see how it goes. And with Philly this year, it's going to definitely be an interesting season for all teams in the NFC East, let alone many other teams throughout the NFL. Mr. McCoffey's team, other teams, a lot of teams out here are going to be making some noise in 2025. With that being said, let's go ahead and take it on into the next topic here within the Gridiron Scoop. NFL referees. We got this topic here, and we'll go ahead and bring this graphic up because this is our thumbnail for the show. NFL referees will emphasize sportsmanship during the 2025 season, it says. And they'll emphasize sportsmanship and crack down on violent as well as sexual suggestive gestures for this season. Do you believe this will affect the game in a positive or negative way?
What does that even mean, honestly?
What's that?
the cracking down on violent and sexually suggestive gestures, because haven't they already been doing that the last decade or so?
That is very true. I mean, they've been saying it though. This is part of their recent statement, and that's a very good question that you ask in response, because it's not like they're going down there and grabbing their crotch or rubbing one out or something like that in the end zone. Like, just to be honest, like they're really not like. I mean, I'm just saying, like, not like literally rubbing one out, but you know what I'm saying with the hand gesture.
I get you.
Yeah.
But I know they've once upon a time they eliminated the throat cutting gesture.
Yes,
because too many people were doing that. Even though it was the Undertaker who was doing it first. Shooting the 6 guns. You can't do that anymore. We've already had crackdowns on this, and I understand we want to emphasize sportsmanship. I know you want to bring a gentlemanly manner to the NFL, but we've already been trying to do that. So can the referees cite specific examples of some violent and suggestive gestures from last season that we're talking about? Like, can you bring those up? I mean, can we talk about those? Like, what do you mean by violent and suggestive gestures? Like, is it trying to teabag somebody when you make a reception? Is it
Halo?
Like in Halo? I mean, like, what are we talking about? Like, are we talking about celebrations in the end zone where somebody throws a hand grenade, somebody throws a football in the air, and it's supposed to signify a hand grenade, and when it lands, all your teammates fall over? I'm like, is it stuff like that? I mean, give me some examples that you're citing that is going to lead to this so-called crackdown, even though we've already had this for going back 20 years.
Bro,
silly. It's silly.
It really is. And I think with, like, you just made the argument for how much more can you really crack down. I think this is basically acknowledgement that we're going to see even more flags than what we've seen in previous seasons. It's like an excuse. I think that basically what we're hearing is this is how we're going to rig Aaron Rodgers winning the AFC championship this year and making it to the Super Bowl and getting the Steelers.
You couldn't have done it last year.
Oh yeah, with the Jets, of course. Yeah, but I mean, they were sitting
because it's the Jets
in the management in the front office. The Commanders are a prime example of once you have the right management, in the office, you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish. Like you can do. And if what happens last year, even though I feel like we're going to see a lot more from that team and what I'm wearing right now, but if what we did last year is the most I see for the next 5 years, I'm happy, because I haven't seen that type of year in my adulthood ever with my franchise. So I am a happy fan of that team. I would much like to see within the next 5 years a Super Bowl or two. That would be cool. But especially when you have this type of quarterback and you want to try to build a dynasty, it could be the new age dynasty. If they're really trying to cement the Commanders name, you need to go all in now. Because if you make a dynasty in the next 5 years, they're kind of forced to keep the Commanders name at that point, because then you've done something that's better than what the Commanders did or what the Redskins did in a 9-year stretch between the 80s and the early 90s. So, yeah, looking at this for what it is, I feel like this is just an excuse for the NFL to rig games. I mean, they already talked about it. There's already been people talking about a script. This could be the beginning of the end. For the who knows? I hope not either.
It would actually help the NFL with having full-time referees instead of teachers and insurance salesmen
and lawyers
worrying about their job the other 4 days of the week, and not having to. I mean, they get paid enough already as it is, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, if there's any type of scandal that happened, with the games and how it went down, if we found out all that speculation of people saying things in the past of it being rigged is true, I would be upset, because we've invested so much time into this league.
We
not just here, but in our whole lifetime watching it.
I mean, we had a major league umpire get suspended before the season began because he was doing online betting on the side. Now, I don't know if it was determining games or not. I hope it wasn't, because that's a whole new thing we have to address with online game with online game book with the apps and whatnot. That's what you got to look into, like you mentioned, Drew. I mean, you got to look into whether or not they're going to fix games so they can get themselves a nice little payday on the side. Like, if I understand that some of the sponsorship money the NFL gets is from sportsbook companies, but if you want people not to come up with the tinfoil, put their tinfoil hats on and have people believe that the NFL is rigged, then you take all that stuff away from players, from referee, from players to officials to staff, to team and league staff. Take all that away from them. Yes, you're taking money from online book, but no one in the league can bet on games. Period.
Nope. Can't whatsoever. It is against rules. And even though it happened in the NBA, Tim Donaghy, 20 years ago or so, got busted for rigging games as a referee for that league. And, he even said in like 60 Minutes interview, I remember not too long after he got caught and, was convicted of everything and served his time, that he said, this is not the only league this happens in, guys. And I'm not the only referee who's ever done this or currently does it, because you can't do that alone. And you got to have some help to keep things hush hush, to make sure that you're not being tipped off. So at the end of the day, and looking at this, I just hope that the things that I'm saying are additional speculation with the rest and never become a proven fact, because I would just be disappointed with the amount of time we've invested. And I just feel like it was kind of relevant with the type of question that we have here, because, and especially with your response, how much more can you really crack down on what you've already been cracking down on?
Right.
So this is a red flag to me, and a big part of why I wanted to discuss that with you today. So I'm glad we got that opportunity to do that there, my man. And, we've discussed many things on this show so far, but the one thing that is one of my favorite things to do each and every week, and that is discuss the snowflake of the week. Here with the snowflake of the week, Ryan, I'm going to let you go ahead and start it on out. Let us know what you're thinking for your choice for this week's pick.
Man alive, the Toronto Argonauts rushing offense, or lack thereof. 13 carries, 31 yards, 29 net yards of rushing offense. Again, tell me, why did you release Kadeem Carey at the beginning of the season? The Toronto Argonauts, as I mentioned during our first segment, for rushing yards, they don't even have 500 rushing yards this year. The next team in front of them, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, have more than 300 yards more than the Toronto Argonauts have team rushing this season. What happened to the bread and butter of the Argonauts offense, which was the running game with Kadeem Carey? It's not the same team. This is why they're currently 2-8 going into week 11. It's that right there.
It's terrible in the eyes of this man right here.
That's terrible.
Really is. So bad. 29 yards. I don't blame you for picking them as your selection for Snowflake of the Week. I am not this at that.
Surprise, motherfucker.
I was not surprised whatsoever. But one pick that I have here may actually be a surprise to you there, Mr. McCarthy. And that is my selection for this week's pick of the Snowflake of the Week. Bo Levi Mitchell is my selection for this week. And that's because of what you had engineered up until this point in the year with 300 total points through this game. But, you're still the top offense of the CFL. And you go against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who you knew were going to be a tough matchup on defense. And the biggest thing that I'm concerned about right here is the 2 sets of turnovers on downs. You only had 6.5 yards per pass, but you've been averaging double digits per pass completion each game so far throughout this season. 16 of 31, 201 passing yards, and an interception. No touchdowns. None whatsoever. Running for your life right here. You had 4 carries in this game. Yes, the offensive line couldn't really sustain what the defense was throwing at you for the Rough Riders coming at your face, but I can't excuse that completely with the 2 interceptions. Yes, they were hauled in by two absolute studs on this team, and that's Devon Campbell and Roland Milligan, who are great on defense, like you had said. But overall, I got to put it on Bo Levi Mitchell, because even though you lost and you converted a turnover with 3 total turnovers with the turnover on downs, throwing right here and taking in what you did. I'm just saying, you should have done better in this game. You're Bo Levi Mitchell. You're a Grey Cup champion. And the Tiger Cats, and the number 1 offense of the season so far, I expect more out of you. Bo Levi Mitchell, that's why he's my selection. So
yeah, it's too bad, but hey, Saskatchewan Roughriders had a great game plan for him, and that's why he had those stats that they had. So
for that, I will do this.
Acknowledge me.
I acknowledge you.
You're acknowledged.
So, with that being said, let's go ahead and take it on into the 2-minute drill and see what's coming up for this week's Week 12 action beyond last night's game. I started out with talking about the teams that are remaining for Week 12, and we had the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Montreal Alouettes last night, but tonight we have the Edmonton Elks and the Ottawa Red Blacks at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Who do you think is going to take this one? Would it be the Elks or Red Blacks?
I'll be quick. Give me the Elks, because Dustin Crum is starting for the Ottawa Red Blacks, not Drew Brown, because he got hurt again. And Cody Fajardo's got this Elks team on a heater, a 2-game heater. So they're building, like I said, they're building momentum towards something. So I'm going to take the Elks in an away victory in this one.
That would be their 3rd consecutive win. And the Red Blacks have had their struggles. They're 3-7. They've lost 1. 252 points they've scored in comparison to the Elks, 211. They've given up 286 points, and the Elks have not given up as much at 261. With the fire, what we're seeing with Rankin at running back, I think I have to agree with you on this one. And I think I'm going to side with you on the fact that the Elks take this win on the road. The Red Blacks fall to 3-8 and absolutely continue to struggle in this 2025 season. It's not looking good for the Red Blacks as the Elks are climbing the steep deficit that they had set for themselves this year. They're making their run back, and we got to give them the shout out for the consecutive wins.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
All right. This next one, BC Lions and Toronto Argonauts, Saturday afternoon, 3:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Who you got in this mother-fathering contest?
Give me the Lions. It'll be a high-scoring game, but give me the Lions.
Lions? Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. The Argonauts, man, they've been finding their way. No, I'm just kidding. I can't, because their running game absolutely sucks. Can't even fathom the fact that they'd even be close to beating the BC Lions, especially with what they did this past weekend and what the BC Lions did to the Alouettes. I'm going with siding with you on this one. The Argos win this game at home, 3:00 mother-father in Eastern Time. Next one.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
For the final game of the weekend, Saturday, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Time, the Saskatchewan Roughriders on the road against Calgary Stampeders. 7:00 p.m. Eastern Time this Saturday. Who are you mother-fathering picking in this contest?
It's the Christmas game.
Christmas game.
Yeah, because the Stampeders wear red. Rough Riders.
Oh yeah. Or
Come on, man.
I was thinking the stoplight game, because it's green and red. You got to stop and go.
Anyway, Calgary's coming off a bye week. They're fully healthy. Their offense is fully healthy. This is going to be a really low-scoring game. I think it's going to be coming down to who wins in the trenches. But given the fact that Calgary's fully rested, give it the Stampeders.
Okay. I disagree. I think the Calgary Stampeders are going to get served that big old fat old steak. If you're just tuning in to the program, make sure you like and subscribe to the platform. Now, back to our program. This game right here, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, the team that they have the running back, the defense. You think a team and the Stampeders, who have only put up 241 points in comparison to the 262 in the Roughriders, and have given up more points on defense than the Roughriders and only have a winning streak of 1. You think they are going to beat a team that has won 4 consecutive games? Started 4-1. It has now doubled that to 8-1 without a loss at this point. 4 straight wins. You think the Stampeders are going to win this one at home? I know Vernon Adams Jr. is something special to watch for quite some time, but I don't think they can go up against this defense for some reason, even though they're only a 10-point differential in points given up. And maybe the Stampeders beat the expletive out of the Roughriders in this game and become the new number 1 defense in the league by holding the Roughriders to less points and then scoring a bunch in this game on this Roughriders defense. I could be wrong, but I highly doubt it given what we've seen over the course of this 2025 season when you compare and contrast the number 1 and number 2 teams in this West Division. The Roughriders have 2 more wins and 2 less losses than this team in the Stampeders. They're absolutely crushing it out here, and I'm a homer with my discussion with this. I know it, but I disagree with you. We finally disagree on a game, and you came in here guns blazing for the Stampeders, and I'm disagreeing. I'm going with my homer team in the Roughriders.
Pew, pew, pew. So don't throw a flag, NFL referees.
Who's giving them the business?
Yeah.
And finally, on the Week 12 bye, we have the Hamilton Mother, Father, and Tiger Cats.
They needed to.
They really did, especially after what happened this past week.
Who's giving them the business?
And now it's time for the post game.
As long as it's one.
Here in the post game, we give our final thoughts and what our vision is for this past week in professional football and what we have coming up here pretty soon for the NFL. And whatever else on your mind with professional football. Ryan, floor is yours. Take it here for the post game.
All right, as opposed to a couple weeks ago when I kind of rambled on about the Jets, I'll keep it very brief. But I'm going to flip the script a little bit and talk about arena football this week because yesterday marked 26 years since the OG Albany Firebirds captured their first and only Arena Bowl championship in the OG Arena Football League. I remember it because I was there. It was the day after my birthday. 6 years later, on August 11th, 2019, the Albany Empire won their first and only Arena Bowl championship in Arena Football 2.0. I remember it because I was there. I have seen an arena or indoor football team participate in Albany in every championship, regardless of the league where they've been a participant. The OG Arena Football League, Arena Football 2.0, the National Arena League, Arena League 3.0, and finally, this past year in Arena Football 1. By the way, perfect record, 12-0, undefeated, undisputed, undeniable. Albany Firebirds. This week, another professional team in the Capital Region, the Albany Fire Wolves of the National Lacrosse League, announced that they were relocating to Oshawa, Ontario, a suburb of Toronto, for the 2025-26 season. And yet another professional team is joining the ever-growing graveyard of professional teams that come and go through the Capital Region of New York. But the Firebirds took to social media yesterday, letting fans know that they were committed. Actually, it was today. They were letting fans know that they were committed to staying in the area and they would be here for the long haul. Was that announcement necessary? Not really, but I think it was helpful to let the Capital Region know that they're not going anywhere. And it also felt like it was an invitation for the small but devoted Firewolves fan base that lost their team to become a part of the Firebirds' nest. No pun intended. Arena football is in Albany's blood. Ever since the first iteration of the team in 1990. We've seen different teams and different leagues come and go, but this ownership group of Mike Corda, Richie Sesnat, and Andy Gelcher are committed to building community involvement and a new generation of fans to be part of Albany arena football history. With the announcement of AF1 expansion into the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, and the Beaumont Renegades jumping ship from the National Arena League to AF1, does it seem like the Firebirds are going to go anywhere anytime soon, which should alleviate Capital Region sports fan concerns. Here's to hoping the Firebirds continue their commitment to the Albany area for years to come. And if I win Powerball tomorrow night, don't be surprised if I jump on the season ticket or even the ownership train.
That was well said there, my man. Looking back at arena football, it definitely is entertaining to watch. It's a small field, but it's a lot of scoring that happens in arena football action. It is so fast paced. Hey, it's pretty much the birthplace for Kurt Warner. We wouldn't have gotten what he got out of him in the NFL had it not been for his reps that he got in the Arena Football League. So
that's true.
Shout out to them and the former Richmond Speed, which was my local team growing up, of a team that I could go watch, but I haven't been exposed to arena football except for what I've seen on TV since the early 2000s, because we haven't really had a team in this area since. But with that being said, those great thoughts there for the post game from Brian. I'm going to kind of take mine a different direction. It's been tough with the Washington Commanders this offseason in comparison to last year. There's a lot of excitement because of the new drafted quarterback in Jaden Daniels and how he would fit with the offense. Well, he fit really well, and to the point to where the team made it all the way to the NFC Championship. And this season, there's a lot of questions because your number one option, Terry McLaurin, is not on the field with you. He's in the building to an extent, but he keeps walking out, because they don't have a deal in place for his extension that he has been fighting for this offseason. He definitely deserves the extension. He deserves to get paid. But I feel like this team, they've messed it up on both sides because they've let it draw out this far to where you're now at a point to where you're 2 weeks away from the start of the season, and it's a mess because you haven't gotten any reps and gotten any time on the field with your team. And it's very mismanaged from this contract aspect, not just from the team management, but from the players' representation as well. Because if you really want to stay in Washington, you find a way to make it happen, and you're continuously on the phone with each other's parties, trying to find a median to where both teams can meet in the middle. The fact that it's August 22nd, Terry hasn't spent a full practice on the field with the team, actually participating, or spent a full day of business hours within the franchise. It's not looking good at this point, in my opinion, and I'm very concerned. That's why I'm wearing his jersey today on this episode, because I don't know how many more opportunities I'm going to get to wear his numbered jersey, because it's the curse of when I buy a jersey, the player's gone within a year. And I was hoping to break that curse with this one when I bought this last year, right before the Hail Mary game, and they played in these jerseys and won that game. So that was a great game for me to be at and a great memory because of what he did in that game for the team as well. But now looking back on it, it could be just one of many memories I'll have to carry into the future without being able to see it consistently in the current day, because he's not there anymore. And I hope that does not become a fact. But right here and now, for the post game, we wanted to continuously discuss that situation in one way, shape, or form on one of the programs each week, because it needs to be fresh and needs to be heard. And hopefully many others feel the same way as a whole, because yes, there's been outspoken discussions about it, but both parties need to come together to be a part of the same team known as the Washington Commanders, because if not, everybody is going to take a and by everybody, I mean Terry, with wherever he gets shipped off to, and the team, because they should have been able to make it work with a rookie coming into his second season now. He's not a rookie anymore, and what he did as a rookie, I mean, now into his second year on a rookie contract with 2 more years of this deal still remaining after this year. You have a window to get yourself into championship contention. And with that, Mr. McCarthy and I are here to now close it on out by saying we only have one more thing left to do for this episode, where we discuss the referees and the sportsmanship all the way through the CFL action. To close out episode 98, we got to remind you that for next week, we will be on a special day and time, Saturday, August 30th, but at the same time frame at 5:05 p.m. Eastern time for episode 99, the last episode in double digits before making it to triple digits. Will be next Saturday. Yes, sir. Woo! Way more than 16-time champ Ric Flair will be one more away from episode 100. But with that being said, we're to go ahead and take this on into the final thing we have left for you, and that is one awesome outro from my man Ryan McCarthy. I am Drew Willingham. We'll see you next at this date and time, August 30th, Saturday, 8:05 p.m. Eastern time. We are sending it out with stay safe out here in these streets.